Chapter 43 of Women of History. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Eden Ray Hedrick. Women of History by Anonymous. Chapter 43. Pocahontas. Born 1594, died 1617. Dr. Hugh Murray. On a signal from their leader, they, the natives of Virginia, laid down their bows and arrows, and led Captain Smith, of the expedition 1607, under strict guard to their capital. He was there exhibited to the women and children, and a wild war dance was performed round him, in fantastic measures and with frightful yells and contortions. He was then shut up in a long house, and supplied at every meal with as much bread and venison as would have dined 20 men, but receiving no other sign of kindness, he began to dread that they were fattening in order to eat him. At last he was led to Pamunkey, the residence of Powhatan, the king. It was here his doom was sealed. The chief received him in pomp, wrapped in a spacious robe of raccoon skins, with all the tails hanging down. Behind appeared 2 long lines of men and women, with faces painted red, heads decked with white down, and necks quite encircled with chains of beads. A lady of rank presented water to wash his hands, another a bunch of feathers to dry them. A long deliberation was then held, and the result proved fatal. 2 large stones were placed before Powhatan, and by the united efforts of the attendants, Smith was dragged to the spot, his head laid bare on one of them, and the mighty club was raised, a few blows of which were to terminate his life. In this last extremity, when every hope seemed past, a very unexpected interposition took place. Pocahontas, the youthful and favorite daughter of this savage chief, was seized with those tender emotions which form the ornament of her sex. Advancing to her father, she, in the most earnest terms, supplicated mercy for the stranger, and though all her entreaties were lost on that savage heart, her zeal only redoubled. She ran to Smith, took his head in her arms, laid her own upon it, and declared that the first death blow must fall upon her. The barbarian's breast was at length softened, and the life of the Englishman was spared. Smith was afterwards liberated and sent to Jamestown, where he was installed as president. As Powhatan's favor was to be courted, there had been sent handsome presents, with materials to crown him with splendor, in the European style. With only 4 companions, he courageously repaired to the residence of the monarch, inviting him to come to be crowned at Jamestown. The party was extremely well received, though once they heard in the adjoining wood outcries so hideous as made them flee to their arms, but Pocahontas assured them they had nothing to fear. Subsequently, Smith was repeatedly in danger, and again, on one occasion, was saved by a second interposition of Pocahontas, who, at the risk of her father's displeasure, ran through the woods on a dark night to give him warning. But the kindness of this princess was ill repaid by the English, to whom she was so much attached, for Argall, an enterprising naval commander, afterwards contrived, through an Indian who had become his sworn friend, to inveigle on board his vessel the fair Pocahontas. Regardless of her tears and entreaties, he conveyed her to Jamestown, where she was well treated, but in negotiation for her ransom exorbitant terms were demanded, which her father indignantly rejected, and the breach seemed only widened. Happily, the chains of the princess's captivity were lightened by others of a more pleasing nature. Mr. John Rolfe, a respectable young man, was smitten with her dignified demeanor, and found no difficulty in gaining her affections. They were afterwards married, and she was converted and baptized under the name of Rebecca, to which the English prefixed the title of lady, and her subsequent conduct is said to have adorned her profession. Soon after, in the company of her husband, she visited England, and Captain Smith wrote a letter to his Majesty recounting her good deeds, declaring that she had a great spirit through a low stature, and beseeching for her a reception corresponding to her rank and merits. She was accordingly introduced at court, and in the circles of fashion, where, as a novelty, she was for some time the leading object, and is said to have deported herself with suitable grace and dignity. Purchas mentions his meeting with her at the table of his patron, Dr. King, Bishop of London, where she was entertained with festival and pomp. The king took an absurd apprehension that Rolfe, on the ground of his wife's birth, might advance a claim to the crown of Virginia. This idea being at length driven out of his mind, He appointed him secretary and recorder general of the colony. The princess, early in 1617, went to embark at Gravesend, but Providence had not destined that she would revisit her native shore. She was there seized with an illness which carried her off in a few days, and her last hours are said to have extremely edified the spectators, being full of Christian resignation and hope. She left a son in the colony, whose offspring, carefully traced, is now numerous, and this descent is the boast of many Virginian families. Chapter 43